Hey guys, Mitch with 7.3 Dipstick here. What you're about to see is a video we shot. We decided Agnes needed some new fuel injectors, 335,000 miles, cold start. So we took a trip out to Full Force Diesel. The guys out there were gracious enough. They actually gave us a full tour of the injector shop, explained how they work, did a bunch of cool stuff. I asked a bunch of silly questions, but we had a really good time with the guys out there. There's a lot of knowledge in this video. There's a lot more that should be covered, but I realize it's long. It's worth it if you're interested in how the injector rebuild process works, or if you've thought about doing your own. A lot of valuable knowledge in here to say you may or may not want to do that. Great guys over there, quality shop, quality product. I can't wait to put the new injectors in Agnes. We're going to do a video of that. So if you find anything interesting in this, please don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, keep your eyes out for new stuff with the new injector shot coming out. We're going to do a full video of the install in Agnes, which is a e-chassis. Not supposed to be very easy, but I've got myself into it. So we're going to go ahead and put new injectors in that. And then also, if you subscribe to the channel, it'll let you know when we produce those videos, get more out there for you. We've got a bunch of stuff planned for this year. We've got some shows we're going to go to, but check out this video of the injector shop over at Full Force Diesel. They are in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Great guys, quality product. Can't wait to get them in Agnes. I know. I wish I could send all of my washers here and have you guys polish my washers.
Yeah.
Because I don't make enough money to buy one of these. But it's cool.
I can massage you. Put your hand in there.
It's really cool.
So obviously they work 410, so they're off on Fridays.
Yeah, that's what Philip was saying the other day.
Nice.
Which I forgot because Paul Rutledge told me to kick Philip when I saw him, and I already forgot.
So pretty much everything comes in and gets unboxed right here on this table. Copper washers get pulled off of them. Oil spouts, if somebody sends them with oil spouts, and then they just kind of,
You know how hard oil spouts hard to get in California? I used to like 1 out of every 10 trucks I'd open up had a broken one from some idiot before me breaking the head off of it, and I could never find anybody that had any around there.
55-gallon drums full.
I need to put them on the website.
They are.
Used
They
oil
are.
spouts. Are they? Okay.
They are.
Yeah.
Coppers.
Yeah.
Coppers, I just haul up 400 pounds and just use coppers.
Jeez.
But then they just kind of basically go around the circle here, getting tore down, and solenoids checked basically for the resistance and everything on the end. But yeah, I mean, like just this core right here, for example.
Yeah,
Like,
all pitted and rusty.
That come out of somebody's
Junkyard motor.
barn floor.
Yeah. That's what you get the low mile 7.3 on Marketplace for $1,800. Looks
Right.
like inside.
Yeah.
Been sitting out. They pulled the valve covers off because they needed a valve cover and let it sit in the barn in the humidity for a year and a half.
Yeah, we used to use this. This used to be how we polished every nozzle nut.
Yeah.
Man, it's out here on a grinding wheel all day long, polishing up every single part until we got that machine.
Jeez.
So, yeah, getting all the just all the
Getting all the black
oil stain, tarnish, all that stuff off of it.
Everything used to be shined right here on a grinding wheel.
Man.
Yeah.
Labor intensive.
Spent many days in front of that thing.
Yeah, it basically just gets tore down. Nozzle nuts, everything will then go out to that polisher, get cleaned, and then the bodies will go on a cart, and then they go over to the machine shop, which we'll go over in just a minute.
And then this is where they pull all the solenoids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is where we completely disassemble down before body screw.
So it's just essentially an electromagnet.
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah.
And it just holds the plunger, or
Yeah.
or it releases the plunger when.
Well, so whenever it gets power, it pulls up on the armature plate, which only moves 10, 12 thousandths. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not much at all, but basically it pulls up on the armature plate, which pulls up on the poppet. That allows the oil to rush in. Oil pushes down the intensifier piston.
Overcomes the spring pressure.
Yeah, which pushes down on the plunger barrel. The plunger starts, pressurizing that fuel in that cavity there. Once it's enough to overcome the nozzle, set point pressure, it's coming out the end of the injector. Two-way
So-
valve. Mm-hmm.
So all these that I've pulled and handled, the only thing it's just an electromagnet.
Mhm.
I love it.
We actually have one up in front.
Yeah.
Completely
So
in
you
half,
can
so
see all the-
You
Cool.
can see every
We'll go through
process
that.
inside of the injector,
We'll go through that when we're here. Since we're here,
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know what your guys' schedule is, but my schedule is Christmas is like Wednesday. I got to be home by then.
Yeah.
I travel with my bedroom.
Sound like you was coming there, then you had to head straight to Dollywood.
No, that was last weekend.
Last
That was last weekend. He wanted me to come by on Friday, and I'm like, I'm literally hauling my wife to Dollywood today, so
Yeah.
we're not going to come by and make her. But she has no interest.
Yeah.
She was a vet tech. She knows animals, not decent.
Right.
No, we disassemble. Everything has to go through that main parts washer first. It can't go into ultrasonic or nothing like that.
Oh yeah,
first,
till you
'cause
get
there's
rid of
so
the
much
grease
oil.
and crud and oil and
An
everything.
ultrasonic is not made to handle as much oil as comes out of these injectors.
So this is a hot washer,
Yeah, that's just a hot spray.
and then this is just.
that one don't really.
It's just a
small
parts
thing.
washer if you need to
It's one we had in the
soak
original days when we was doing everything by hand, and it just sort of
Yeah.
stays around and do. Yeah, it's just
So now you
spray.
just
Right. That just gets the base oil off.
yeah.
Like I said, over here, disassemble, separate on the barrels. This is all the small parts inside. Everything gets sorted as we tear it down.
That's cool.
Fuel balls, check plates.
We have our own proprietary plunger barrels done for us, so we have to keep up with cores to send those back to.
Yeah. That's cool. So that's the plunger barrel.
So that is what you would consider the barrel of it, and then the
I'll show you a whole assembly.
Yeah.
I grabbed one of these teaching split shot, single shot.
Oh yeah. I always forget there's that.
Mm-hmm.
So on the 97, like my bus, that's single shot, right?
Yes.
And then the Super Duties, especially the laters, and the number 8 anti-cackle
Yeah.
injector is a split shot. And the theory behind that is instead of sending it all in one pulse, they send it in multiple pulses to
So
try
it's basically like a small pilot injection event to get the burn started in the cylinder.
to start
So
the
you
fire.
don't, so you don't get like that harsh like injector knock sound,
Okay. I love this. I'm a sucker for knowledge and being a mechanic. I don't want to toot my own horn. I think I was a pretty decent mechanic. My following said I was a pretty decent mechanic, but that was because if I was going to fix something, I understood what I was fixing. Why did it fail? Is there a way to prevent it from failing again? And how do we put it back together right to minimize or the risk of it failing? Because it's going to. So, no matter what, if you have a mechanical part, there's always a risk of failure. How do you minimize that risk?
Like your stock AA injector. It's a single shot versus split shot design.
Okay. Can you see that? So that one's the single shot. That one's a split shot, multiple holes.
Yeah, pilot. You get a pilot shot before the injection. But then let me show you.
Split shot.
Yes. They say even the barrel.
Okay, so the barrel.
Say
tuning side of it that makes you understand more how that injector works, how your mass airflow sensor works, how your map sensor
I
works.
think it even helps with diagnostics as shop owners,
yeah.
even if they're not going to get into tuning. If they take the class to understand how the tuning works, it helps with diagnostics. That's something.
And being able to make changes, real time. You make a change to this tune file. You do a dyno run, you do a street pull, whatever, and then you look at a data log. Like, okay, so doing this makes it do this. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah. Cool.
But this is kind of where the fuel sides are assembled, and
this is the fuel side. That's
hot
the
test.
oil side.
Yeah. And then once they're kind of completed here, they basically go out here into this next room. We've still got one guy over here in the hole that flows in here as well.
there's everything in there, 2 inches in there. But that's for once they're built, they go right here.
Okay. And what's that guy do?
So that's a flow bitch. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go here. It looks
Okay.
it's prettier out here.
It's prettier out here. We'll take. I'm all right
We
with
have
that.
better lighting.
Better lighting. There you go. Okay. It's a cylinder head.
Cylinder head, and there, high pressure oil pump, fuel pump. I mean, you can see it's like a
Okay.
fuel block. That's their fuel pressure. Balance IDM in there runs it.
Okay.
Speaker system. And Canada made these. We really like it. I really like it. Got 2000s.
That's crazy.
Got a flush station over there for flow testing. You put them over there, flush them before you run them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty much. That's
So when
the same.
people are getting their injectors and they're seeing the different colored solenoids, that has no bearing on how the injector works because they're all basically just an electromagnet. It's just the different manufacturers or like this is something I'm used to seeing because I'd pull them out like this, the brownish colored one. But Ford, when I'd get them from Ford, they always had the plate with the R stamped in them. That was how you determined the rebuilt versus the not.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest callbacks we get. You know, whenever guys first get a set of injectors from us, we're like, "Hey,
They don't match.
I've got this one injector. I think you misboxed this or something." You know, it's just
So
that set of injectors that you
So the,
got from us had one rebuilt.
and you guys always have like a flow sheet with them
Yes,
when you
yes,
ship
yes.
them. So as long as that's there, you're good to go,
Yeah.
regardless of what color the top cap the solenoid is.
Right. I mean, Zach's on the phone going around with people and solenoids throw people off on everything. It's like
Yeah,
they order stage 1, but it's got an AD solenoid. That don't.
Yeah.
That does not
Yeah.
matter.
Or they've got a 2000 model truck that's supposed to have ADs in it, or they're taking stock ADs out and they ordered a set of stage 1s, and those stage 1s just so happen to be built from a
ABs.
set of ABs. Yeah, exactly. And they're called, "Hey man, you sent me the wrong injectors.
Well,
They're stage 1s."
and that's because you guys are pulling the solenoids off and testing them. Now you have a box of solenoids. Then you're building the injectors, taking the box of good solenoids, and I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I
Which
could
we
see
still
with that
keep on.
800 a week, you would lose production rates if the guy had to pull every solenoid out
Yeah.
and try to match
Well,
whether there's enough
just wait-
ABs in the box
wait
for
very
that.
soon, and we're
Yeah.
gonna have a solution for this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
There's
we've
more
got a
to-
solution.
we got a solution for this. It's coming.
but it's just one of those things that it's the thing that annoys me, I think, on the internet is when people are like complaining and they'll complain about a company because they got two different colored solenoids, and it's only because of lack of education. If we can educate the consumer, that would help reduce the amount of complaint calls people get if we can educate the consumer. That's I love saying that. We heard that at Summit 7.3 last year, educate the consumer. And I think that's something me as a manufacturer, I try to do, but I do one part and I do it really hard. So when you get into companies that are producing thousands of parts or hundreds of parts, it's really hard to produce that education value for the customer so that you can minimize, like Hydra always, how do we get the installs on the Hydra? Because that's their number one complaint. And it's usually something that could have been solved if there was enough information out there.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to get the information out, hopefully reduce the amount of time you guys spend on the phone dealing with complaint calls on something that is across the board not a problem.
Another thing that we used to get a lot of complaints on was O-rings. So like now we've got I wouldn't say a specific set of O-rings, but we've got we test them with old O-rings in the bench. That way, whenever they come out of the bench, they get a brand new O-ring put on them. And before we tested, we went ahead and put the new O-rings on them before testing them. Well, it would it'd knock a little bit of that paint off the O-ring.
Yeah.
People, oh man, this is a used injector. Now it just went in and out of the flow bench. That's
And
it.
the flow bench is actually a cylinder head, so
Yeah.
it's going to do.
Yeah.
It's going to look like an installed
exactly
injector, but that was so that you could test it and actually
Yeah, so we
verify it did its
It adds
job.
a little bit more time to the process, basically putting
Well-
on those O-rings, taking those O-rings off, putting these O-rings on.
I mean, if the customer wants, you guys could raise your price another 10% and
Yeah,
test them with brand new O-rings and then replace them with brand new
Well, I mean,
O-rings again.
Heck, I
But
know
now you're a
this-
double O-ring
Yeah.
set for every injector that goes out the bench.
Our test O-rings do get swapped out. They are new when we start.
Right.
Don't pull them off cord.
Well, what I mean is,
Yeah.
if you can reuse that O-ring for say 10 tests,
Yes,
you're
yeah.
saving the customer having to increase the price of the injector for using two sets of O-ring on every injector, one to test and one to ship. So that makes total sense. No, I like that plan.
Cosmetically, it just looks so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, everything's cosmetic. I talk about the thing we got coming with the solenoids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Everything is going to be cosmetic. Like I said,
Well,
hopefully to stop the questions that we already
We've
got going.
we've really gone to a country that wants it pretty, whether they can ever see it again or not.
They want it right now.
I had so many people tell me I needed to anodize my part, and I'm like, you do realize it bolts to the oil pan behind the starter inside the frame rail.
Yeah.
Nobody will ever see it. They're like, oh, but on the shelf, it'll be pretty and anodized and logoed. And I'm like, it's, I can't justify doing that to raise the cost of the consumer because they already complain about the cost. But so you guys are finding ways to maximize efficiency and performance and still give them what they want, which is pretty. And they'll never see them under the valve cover.
And last year, so much has changed on how we do things, and then next year it's going to be just the same.
Well, this is my fourth or fifth trip out here, and just seeing the growth in the company and the change in the procedures in the last 3 or 4 years is great.
Yeah.
You know, with the new polishing machine, and like the first time I came in here, that room was nothing but 55-gallon drums full of rusted injector parts
Yeah.
everywhere. And you can really
And once
tell the
we-
cleanup and the more efficient you guys have got with the
Once
system.
everybody gets out of here, and this whole side of the building, just injectors.
Just injectors, it'll
It's
Yeah, like
gonna
we'll
be
be able to
all
move,
over.
tear down out to out there.
Yeah,
That's-
open up the space. You can wheel those baker racks around a little bit better, and I have a feeling you guys will probably be purchasing more and more of those baker racks, just
Yeah.
so that you're
Come back next
so
year.
that you
Yeah.
can alleviate more of the cart issue. You'll
Yeah.
have more room to actually assembly line it.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I don't know exactly how our whole open house deal is going to work, but I'm hoping.
Yeah, it's back here.
What's this?
I don't know if you want to tell we even got like the new benches.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
our
yeah,
R&D.
yeah.
This is where I do a lot of R&D on what we're doing with injectors.
Okay,
Uh,
I get to touch stuff.
right, this is the Parker Shoes Leo.
Huey Master.
This one right here, if I really want to get in depth with anything I'm R&Ding, like new stuff I'm trying, this one really gets way more detailed. So this is where,
Yeah.
like I said, we're also getting into some common stuff. We're not building performance, so nobody needs to go nuts on that. But as far
But
as
testing
good or
to
bad,
understand. Yeah.
let's get into that. This right here, this bench is really something. It gets way more detailed response time, everything. I can
Okay.
test.
So you can test actual, like more than a beaker flow. You're getting
Yes,
a
exactly.
digital printout of flows, millisecond timing.
It's
So-
all thanks to you. So I get 6 later.
Yeah, so I can take it.
So-
Resistances,
For resistance, pressure, response,
back leak.
back leak flow,
Yeah, it does all
static
kinds of different
leaks.
stuff.
Nice. So that gets you way more detailed into what the average daily driven 7.3 is ever going to
A
need.
lot of R&D or something like that. Right here helps.
I mean, you got guys going to McDonald's and throwing fry oil in a 7.3 and driving it down the road. So those guys, this is for the new and improved up and coming performance stuff more than it is your daily driver stuff.
I mean, just R&D. I
Yep.
love it.
Research
Don't
and
think I ain't
development.
trying to do stuff.
Research
See
and
what
development. That's cool.
happens.
Ultrasonic
We'll
clean.
shoot y'all if you want lunch here, and then I guess
Yeah.
we'll probably better do that.
Yeah. We'll run through there real quick. You've never seen a machine shop.
Briefly in August, Philip walked me out there for a couple seconds. You still had a whole pile of new machines back in the corner way back that hadn't even been opened yet.
Yeah. They're all machine bodies. They were about to go back. Huh? They're about to go back. They're headed your way right now.
You know what's going on there.
So these are the bodies that were all machined to
That's
fit the
after it's-
plunger. So you can see some of these are, the color is just a little different, and that has nothing to do with anything other than age of steel.
Oh, it's just, yeah, how
And probably the
reflects.
light reflection.
reflex. It's all, it's the same.
Oh,
finish
yeah.
on all of
It's because you got the lights coming from different directions.
These are all, they just came back from the machine shop. They all got to be ultrasonic clean. They ultrasonic and all clean before they go to them, and then ultrasonic clean them again when they come back. So,
That's cool.
they get cleaned multiple times before.
Well, you have to.
Cords that I bought yesterday. So it's a never-ending cycle. This is all just cords that I have about
Because you know,
So where do you get the cores other than the people who buy your injectors who may or may not send their cores back?
core buyers.
So there's guys out there scouring junkyards and going online, and then you guys have to buy them from them because they're out there finding.
Right there. This is whole.
Okay, that one's got the pilot.
Yeah, I got another little system there. Barrel, plunger, everything's different. And then if you want to talk about how we talked about ratios, 7-to-1, 5-to-1.
Okay,
I guess I'll get this.
I was gonna say I think this one.
Yeah. I'll
Before you
all
get
that
at it.
back. Oh, I'll put that back. goes. Yeah, that's the diameter. You go from a 6 millimeter
Okay.
to 7 millimeter. So that is
So
what
with that,
changes your
that
5 to
pulls
1 to
up
7
and
to
the
1.
fuel is inside there underneath it, so to speak, and then it shoves it down the bore.
Yeah.
And obviously the larger it is, the more fuel you have going through the same port at the bottom. So you're 5 to 1 to 7 to 1.
Yeah. It's all just changing that right there. That is the difference
So that's
between
your smaller
yeah,
90 to 160 or whatever, and then
All
another,
to a 180.
That's going to be like your hybrid style.
Okay.
That's what makes a
This is
conventional
a hybrid.
injector a hybrid.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is actually what this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
All
bigger
right.
size is when you get into the stage 3, 205 and up.
Okay,
You're going to find a hybrid plunger barrel inside.
a bigger plunger barrel.
Really, yeah.
And that changes obviously the ratio of injection because larger bore.
Like I said, even A8, A8, the spring, everything is different
Okay.
and all that. Yeah, but that's really your difference in your pilot injection and then your hybrid.
Okay.
Like stage 2, like I said, will be the smaller 6 millimeter. Then you go 7 millimeter, 205 and up.
Okay.
And you go like that.
You get up into those 300s.
And then, like I said, we're getting they threw me. That's the one that's got to go back to the machine shop. So this is stuff that we're even taking care of that we used to not. You can see a poppet.
Okay.
I'd say
So you
is
can see
poppet
the
top.
impact.
You can see the imprint. Yeah. It's like any kind. If you've done any kind of machining, you know what I mean. Something tilts. If it's one thou, right? You know what I mean.
Right,
By the time
it's
you
gonna-
get from one end to another, you got that. So every
You
one
get
that we do
just that little dent.
now goes back there on lapping machines, and we make them all completely flat. There's going to be no rock.
So there's no risk of that, which you can barely even feel it with your thumbnail, but you
That's
change
it.
the tolerance.
That's
These
it.
things aren't, I mean, we're not talking quarter-inch tolerance. These things are down to the 100,000.
Well,
And so if you have any indent,
what you run
you're
into
changing
is,
the perimeter.
You know, so the solenoid, obviously the bottoms of the solenoids, we machine those flat too. So and then you try to get that armature plate as flat to the bottom of that solenoid as you can. So that way, whenever that armature plate gets pulled up, and you know it's pulling up this poppet assembly, you want it to pull it up as straight and as true as you can. To where if that armature's sitting on that poppet a little bit crooked, it's trying to pull this poppet up crooked. Well, it's
Binding.
binding, yeah.
well, and you're not going to get the full throw.
Right. Because by
Like-
the time that solenoid, that solenoid's only on for.
I did mostly stock, like we said, but
Mhm.
I did build some performance engines. I built a spec 9.15 to 1 compression ratio,
Mhm.
454 for a guy. And we got down to what's the compressed thickness of the head gasket? What's the cylinder volume? What's the head volume? What's the protrusion of the piston coming out of the deck of the block? And all of that comes into play to get maximum efficiency out of something. So if your injector that's running on, say, a 3,000ths tolerance has a 1,000ths thing, you're now outside of tolerance and you're not getting your efficiency out of the injector if you're using dented parts.
Every one of them goes back there
And gets
flattened
lapped.
before. Yeah,
That's
the one that's
awesome.
gotta be to affect machine shop. We try to anything
that's
we
some-
can, but it's little details. is what
Right.
we're
It's
trying
the
to really work on.
OCD. It's like, let's
That goes
try to
with it.
make it as absolutely efficient as possible.
Mhm.
That's awesome. That's
It's the
awesome.
little
I
details.
love these little things because that's like,
Probably find a better one.
that's
Well,
like
and
my
those-
kit. I hand test every nut. People are like, your nut didn't thread on. I'm
Yeah.
like, I buy the Ford adapter from Ford.
Yeah.
I've literally 8,000 nuts.
Yeah.
These two fingers
Yeah.
have threaded on and threaded off. I've thrown away 20 or 30 nuts
Yeah.
that I pay good money for. And I could probably go back to my manufacturer and say, hey, you messed up. But I'm like,
Yeah.
to me, it's not worth it. I hand test everything. And that's what you guys are doing. You're inspecting and testing every component.
So with our gauges and stuff like that, every 2 injectors I make them check constant. Like
That's
so
awesome.
I've really upped the game of what I'm trying to get the boys to do, and they're
Yeah.
all chiming along right along with it. But, yeah.
And how many injectors a week do you actually, like, what is
Minimum of 800.
800 a week
Minimum.
manufactured? What's your best week?
169 sets.
Nice. That's a lot of injectors.
169 sets.
And every single one of them is visually inspected by a live human body, not run through a machine for the most part. Like,
Oh no, this is all hand.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is it's
That's
you're
what
you're
we- that's what we
eliminating
sold them.
you're eliminating the machine
I
aspect.
was back in 169 was during COVID when I had nothing on.
When
the shelf.
everybody was getting that $1,400 check and it was just enough for a
Yeah.
salvage.
I was a month out. Now that's the crew humping. That's not no 40-hour week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, during
So
COVID,
everybody else was sitting home getting government money, and your
Yeah.
guys were in here getting
Oh
paid.
yeah.
Your guys
Yeah,
were
we-
getting
we-
OT. They were
yeah.
living the dream.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so basically these two guys right here, Pat and AJ, they assemble all of the oil sides of the injector.
Okay.
Which these are, obviously not that, but they assemble the oil side, and then basically they go, into these racks right here, and then as these guys over here, free up, they build the fuel sides of it.
Okay.
So
this is the fuel side of the injector.
yeah,
this is all parts. Each
it's like your nozzle springs, that's your.
So when looking at this stuff, you see a lot of guys online, and they're like, "I'm going to rebuild my own injectors." Theoretically, a guy could get the parts and do it, but unless they have the equipment to do the checks that you guys are doing, the micrometers and the stuff, it's a crapshoot as to whether they got it back
Yeah.
to within factory
You
specs.
can
It'll
get
probably be better than it was before,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be as good or as balanced as what you guys are doing because yours are all coming out with the same spec.
You would have more luck on the fuel side, but when you
Yeah.
start getting into the oil side, that's when
So when they
Things
talk
really
about
are more
shimming
critical.
your injectors for better cold start,
That
what are
would
they
be
shimming?
The oil side. So as just grab on these bodies here.
Sorry.
No, you're,
I got all kinds of crazy questions, but
So
these are the
basically,
things that I'm
as-
seeing on the internet that I want to be able to answer questions for.
So as this injector wears, that seat down in there on the
Okay.
body, this
Just like a
poppet-
valve seat.
this poppet just sinks lower and lower and lower, gets further and further away from the solenoid. So
Okay.
that changes obviously your dwell time there in between the solenoid and the armature.
Okay.
All of that changes. So that's where the shimming comes in. So you stack shims right there on top of that and bring the armature plate up
Okay.
closer to the solenoid, getting your travel,
Trying to set your air
tolerances
gap
all-
or
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
they would call it.
Trying to get all that back right. So that was where shimming come in at. And years ago, us and well, I mean, there's still other companies that still do it, but that was kind of like the you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be shimming them. And for a long time.
But you could get more life out of a partially
Yeah.
worn injector.
Yeah. Well,
But
whatever
But you're not going to
measurements you come
address
into
any
play.
other nozzle issues or plunger issues. You're just going to address its ability to fire on time correctly.
And back, we'll just say 5, 10, 15 years ago, whenever you was getting cores in that had 120, 30,000 miles, lower mileage core injectors that somebody was wanting to just turn into a performance injector, very very seldom did they need any shimming there. Maybe a half of a thou at most. Throwing a half a thou shimming under, and if that armature plate does walk just a little bit, it wasn't as huge of a deal. Now we're getting injectors that's been on their second, maybe even third rebuild cycle.
Right.
They're 400,000 or 500,000 miles on it. That poppet is sunk way down deep in there. You're just having to add more and more worth of shim. So that's where, and we'll show you whenever we get over to the machine shop. That's where they're machining off the top of the body here.
Okay.
So as this poppet sinks,
That makes sense. That's like decking
So-
a block.
exactly.
So you're not really changing any of the volume of the
No, no,
injector at all. All you're doing is you're
Yeah.
you're repairing the air gap without having to shim it by
Exactly.
machining the body down.
And we're machining everything.
And there's-
2 to 3 tenths of a thousandth.
And you're talking, I mean, I'm not a great judge, but that's an inch
Mhm.
of body. Now, granted, you want to have as
Mhm.
much of that as possible, but if you're taking 2/1000ths off
Yeah,
of 1 inch,
Exactly.
that means that's a lot of thousandths left to make up that. And it's a better process than shimming it. I have to imagine shimming it would be cheaper because you don't have machine work time. You're just buying shims. But where do you find half thousandths shims on
They're
the
out there.
regular?
Oh,
Well,
eBay,
yeah,
you get on eBay,
But I
buy
mean,
all day long.
and how do you
They're out
act?
there.
How do you get them separated and not put 3 on at once at half a thousand? That's, I
yeah.
mean, human hairs
Yeah.
are what?
Yeah, usually a thou. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You're talking thinner than
Yeah.
hair. So
Like
that's cool. So what's the biggest wear item in the fuel side? Like what? When you take them apart, what usually wears? It's not the check ball. It's not that little guy. It's not these
Everything
needle bearing
can wear.
things.
Yeah, but I mean, nozzle spring over time is going to sink, get smaller.
So the springs,
Compression.
just because of the
Yeah.
abuse the
Then you
spring
start,
goes through.
you start losing that atomization then
Yeah.
as that nozzle spring weakens.
So that's probably the most susceptible to wear
to where
on
it
the
is.
nozzle side is
Plundered
the spring.
barrel, I'd say is number one.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then
And we're gonna get into that
everything
with
over
spring.
millions and millions of cycles.
Yeah. Well, like Agnes has 335,000. I was told the valve covers have never been off the bus.
Mhm.
335,000, and that's not including the idle hours because it was a
Yeah.
wheelchair bus. To run the lift, you have to have the motor running at high idle.
Mhm.
So what are the actual hours on my injector? So yeah, I can imagine springs they've taken some
Yeah,
abuse. There's
they're
probably
tired.
10 million
tired.
cycles on them springs, which I've noticed under 30 degrees, she doesn't like to start.
Mhm.
And even I don't remember what was it in Oregon, Gavin, at the No BS OBS show. It was probably 40, 45 degrees.
Somewhere about that.
And the first cold start after she'd been turned off for 3 days. Of course, we bought her,
Mhm.
did very little to her, drove her 3,000 miles out there,
Yeah.
shut it down for 3 days, and the next morning I fired it up, and it was a V6.
Yeah.
It was a V6. I had to shut it off, wait a few more minutes, fire it up. I got a V7,
Yeah.
let it chug for a little while, shut it off,
Yeah.
waited 5 minutes, started up. I had a V8 again.
Yeah, like where Adams, like that's a set I had come in this week. Like you wear
Okay.
the tungsten off the plundering barrel, like that right there.
Yeah,
No
Done.
fuel, no lubrication. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
right there. That's where your fuel side goes.
okay.
If you get that tungsten, like I
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
I
then
got a
you-
set
then you
this
start-
week. I got the whole set.
Mhm.
Oh, wow. That guy had some miles on it, probably. Or just abuse.
Well, no, that
No,
one
that-
was a lack of fuel pressure.
That's
Oh.
But one problem like that can trash the
Yeah.
whole
Okay.
fuel side.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everything has to stay
So-
lubricated to move.
I think it was in Yellowstone we noticed. So I do get the 1211,
Mhm.
and we believe it's because of lack of boost because I roll cold like crazy. But I got it. It went to about 2,300 RPMs, and it would not go past it.
Mhm.
That's probably starving for fuel or oil. One of the two.
Oil, yeah.
One of the two. It probably starved itself.
That and I mean, again, a set of 350,000 miles stock AA injectors that they may have just been doing all that they could do.
I'm giving it all he's got, Captain. It just can't take it no more.
Like I said, and as far as lapping, we even take back out our lapping machines. Every fuel plate gets lapped for flatness.
Okay.
Every single one of them goes on a polisher.
So-
Make sure
Fuel plate, are there different sizes or are they
I
all
don't
pretty
know.
much
These
the
are
same
pretty much
on the
the same.
7.3?
when you get into 275s and up, we make fuel side mods in these plates. and
Okay.
things like that. But as far
Bigger
as
bore or whatever to
as
allow
your
more
AA,
fuel to go
AB,
through.
you know what I mean? These are
Okay.
pretty standard.
So anything
Yeah, you got
from your 90 cc's all the way to say 205, 225s, whatever. It's just
check ball in there.
okay.
You know what I mean? That's how
And then these are just alignment dowels.
Alignment dowels. Yeah.
All right, and that the check ball just keeps it from dripping when it's not being fired. Is that
It has it seals. You know what I mean?
so? It's just like a one-way check valve to keep the fuel going the direction it's supposed to be going. Cool. So is that okay? So that would be more for the compression to not bubble
Not
in.
necessarily that, because your pintle and your nozzle is what's sealing that off.
Okay.
That's what's sealing the fuel from leaking out of the injector.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, we pop test sort of thing that you talking about your IDI.
Yeah.
We pop test nozzle lift on every single injector that goes out the door.
Okay.
So
Cool.
each set is balanced on this right here. It's our system, but it
Yep.
works.
Yeah. That's
Perfect.
all.
Like I said, there's your pop.
So
test,
there's your pop
screws,
test.
nozzle cap on.
Okay.
That's just like the plunger hitting like the piston.
Okay.
Right there. But yeah,
A little
everything-
homemade, so to speak,
Yeah.
plunger operation, and that's probably just fuel
Uh,
Calibration for
or calibration fluid.
Yeah. No, we pop test every nozzle. Every fuel assembly gets pop test before it ever.
And
makes
what
it on
is the
injector.
opening pressure? Where
We
where do
played
you
a
like?
lot,
Where do
some
you
of
like?
the
Where's
guys.
the taller? Like, what's the average?
26 to 2800.
2,800. Okay,
Sort of right in there.
that's
There's
good.
a lot of people want it. Now we got some guys. They want really high. We played. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah,
whole
we
different
do
thing.
some custom stuff every once in a while for guys that that want to try a different, a higher pop pressure.
Okay, for more of the high performance stuff, they're
It's
racing.
more so. I mean, no, you don't have to. Like, it's just some guys just think that I wouldn't
They've
say
done
think.
their
Yeah,
research
yeah,
and
yeah.
they're
They have their theories. They're
yeah, like Andrew Arthur's tested
Mhm.
17 different blade designs on turbos, and he's always going back and forth. And now he has a certain wheel that he's having
Yeah.
custom made for his stuff.
Yeah.
Because whatever he's done, his combination,
yeah.
that turbo wheel
Exactly.
works best for his situation.
Exactly.
And that goes back to, you could take a stock set of 160s and put them in my bus. You could put them in a Super Duty. You could put them in a 100,000 mile. They're all going to do something different because the vehicle has so many miles on it, and just depending on what's worn.
Mhm.
What's your fuel pressure, mechanical versus e-fuel versus Super Duty
Well,
fuel?
and so like changing that your your nozzle lift pressure, your pop pressure basically changes your timing drastically as well. So
That's right.
whenever you're so let's just say for instance you're trying to dump X amount of cc's out of this injector, you've done the math, you've done the calculations, you know that this injector needs to be open for this many milliseconds, and in that window to get it in there before the piston's at whatever degree you want it, or whatever height of stroke before top dead center. So you've got all your calculations done in your tuning. Well, if you change that pop pressure from, let's just say, 2,500 psi to 3,000 psi, now you've delayed all of that.
You've delayed it all
because that
by a
nozzle is
millisecond
going
or
to,
more.
yeah, that nozzle is going to open slowly.
So now it's affected your timing. And unlike a gas engine, which was what I grew up with, you had injection timing,
Yeah.
and injection or spark.
Yeah.
Diesel, your injection is your timing and your spark at the same time, because it's compression and heat that creates the explosion.
Mhm.
So changing your pop pressure, okay, that makes sense. So you're effectively changing the timing, which
Yeah.
then you have to go in and write your program to
Yeah.
advance or
And
delay
that's,
your fire of the
that's
injector to make
where,
up for it.
like there's a handful of tuners out there. I wouldn't say so much with the 7.3 world, but like especially in the 6-liter world, we've got guys that tuning companies that will specifically ask whose injectors are. I don't care that they're a 175/30. Whose are they?
Whose are they? Because they're understanding
They're
what
going to
the
run
pop
this
pressure.
tune file is going to run different on
Yeah,
brand
and that's
X
why a
injector
lot of
versus brand Y
the
injector.
Hydra tunes, the can tunes, everybody says they love them, and then you get guys that say, "Oh, I did an SDK and it was way better than Jelly Built," or
Mhm.
Jelly Built did one and it was way better than SDK, and it's because those guys are tuning per their specs, but it might not match the injector that the customer put in. So they might have your injectors and a Jelly Built tune and then switch to SDK, and it's going to be different because the timing's going to be different. Even though the mapping looks the same on the tune, it's the timing that's going to change things.
Yeah. You can have the best injector money can buy, or the worst injector money can buy, and tuning will make either one of them run awesome or really, really bad. So I mean, you can
I'm threatening to take the Minotaur training
Yeah.
at Summit 7.3, and I have no need
I
for it.
wouldn't.
I'm not going to write my own tunes. I want to see what the map. And you have a gap that is full of oil here, high pressure oil.
Fuel right there.
Okay, oil's up here.
Yeah,
Fuel.
yeah.
So that groove that's in there
Mhm.
has absolutely no bearing on the performance of the machine other than aesthetics. But if you send these out, customer is going to say, "Oh, look at it's got a big nick right in the body." And we now know that if you machine the body,
Yeah.
you're asking for trouble in the long run.
Like that's one like what we showed you, the rusty. That's what
Yeah.
we clean it up. That's what it's
So
gonna
when you
look like
send
when
your
you
core
fix it.
back and it's covered in rust, and it's even after it's ultrasonic cleaned, even though, well, this one no, because the rust is
Yeah.
down in the O-ring
Yeah.
groove. But even though there's no sealing surface here, this is just fuel. It's not pretty, and then you get
And that-
complaints and
and
they
that
come
fuel's
back.
not
So
fun.
these that you've now spent the time and money to polish, clean, inspect are garbage.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even though they're functional. Like if you
And
were
that-
building
that-
a set for your own personal 7.3, you could.
Thanks.
This one you could do.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
one
yeah,
there,
yeah.
I
Oh,
wouldn't
yeah.
because of the
Yeah.
pitting in the groove. But these would be completely functional in anybody's truck. But because it's ugly,
We try and keep
it doesn't go out to the end user so that they don't unbox them in their garage at 3 in the
And we even
morning,
sorted them twice.
sorted twice.
Yeah,
Like,
I
please
said,
find
there's
me a
whole-
usable
like I
one in
said,
there.
That's not even out there, but over there I got a whole thing of broke solenoids. Like that's the big
Ugh.
solenoids that are bad. You get people who just want.
So do they make new solenoids? Can you buy brand new ones? Or do they exist? They're
Yes.
probably cost prohibitive, but they exist.
That's about $400.
Yeah. So your main hopes with the cores, and that's why the cores have such value, is you're trying to get as many usable pieces as you can off of that injector.
People just want to throw them in a post office box with no packaging and hope they get there. And then-
Right, and they're beating themselves up all the way here. By the time you get them, the The electrical connector on the solenoid is shot.
There's what we got in stock right now. That's all injectors on that road right there.
Is that all your injectors? Besides, of course, this pallet here that's
That's
boxes. Okay. So this is
stock.
what's in stock now. A couple hundred sets.
And then as they build them and bring them over here, they package them right here, and then they'll
And
go
then
into
they'll
those
figure out what
boxes
they
and-
go, and they come out here on the shelf, and then you get a big order from somebody like KC Turbos or someone. They'll say, "Hey, send me 40 sets," and you're like, "Crud, now we're out. Somebody quick, get on these ones."
Well, and that's where the whole core dilemma comes in. Is you've got so many. We've got so many stocking dealers. Luke's good. Like Casey, or several other dealers out there
That stock a bunch.
50 plus sets of injectors. Well, that's 50 out of our inventory that we may not see those cores back for 6-8 months.
Right. So now you got that many injectors out, but
So
no
we-
parts to reproduce.
That's
So that's-
revolving door core.
That it's like me. As a small company, I try to keep a minimum amount of inventory on hand for when someone orders them. Like you guys were the first ones that hit me with a 100-unit order, and I mean I wasn't anywhere near that volume yet, and I was like, holy cow! And I was like, well, I have the stuff. I made them, and I'm like, now I have none left. I hope nobody else calls me and orders any for 2 weeks because I got to produce the part.
Yeah.
So I get that, but at the same time, I don't want to stock 800.
Right.
Because then I'm out all that money on inventory, and I got to wait possibly 6 months for those 800 to sell. So yeah, it's all about management of the materials, the volume.
So like that.
Yeah. So this
CNC
wasn't set up yet.
Yeah.
Last time I was here.
Yeah. So Steve, that was in the office in there,
Yeah.
we had all of it. Not all of this. These are all new machines, but he's got a full CNC shop at his house too.
Okay.
That was where our machining used to get done at. So every day Thomas would load up the bed of his truck with bodies, carry them up
Somebody
there,
get the
drop 'em
forklift
off.
and put all this stuff in,
Yeah.
and so you would transport it up there. He'd machine it, transport it back here, unload it.
The next
So
evening-
now
I
you
saw
can
her-
move it from one room to the next instead of driving it across the town.
I saw Steve, our machine, this morning. I did my wife. Yeah, a long
There you
time.
go.
Yeah, this was our new grinder. Not many people are willing to spend the money on one of these.
No. How you doing?
You're gonna let him slide in off.
So,
Already done. That's the last one.
is that the last one?
No, see, it'll come down. Probe. We set what we want. Everything is pre-measured before it goes in there. We tell it what we need.
So it's right now you can see the little micrometer drop down,
Yep.
measured that body,
Probes.
and now the grinding wheel is calculating what it's going to do to go in there and get close, start the water flow. Yep.
This machine right here is highly accurate.
Yeah, it is.
Highly accurate.
I like the fact that it's moving the table instead of the head. So your grinding wheel is not sliding. And so that's the machining process of the body that we were talking about, so you don't have to shim.
Back to our height,
So
right where
that
we need
takes
to be.
your height where you need to be, so you don't have to shim them. One less moving part inside of an injector.
Let's get this back to where we need to be. Right there, where I like to see them.
So that sets your tolerances. So essentially, when it's all reassembled, it's a brand new injector. Even though it's rebuilt, it's a brand new because your tolerances are back to spec.
Now, there's other measurements. You still got armature to solenoid. There's a lot of other measurements. This gets us back pop it high.
So
where
the
I
body, pop it height,
Yeah.
that initial.
where I need to be. Then there's still other measurements like inside the body. There's still these shims. These are ones people talk when they say shims. These ain't ever going away. Like that's still a shim.
Right.
It's always going to be an injector.
And
You
it's-
can play with that.
And it's captive because it's on a cylinder that's inside a body.
Yes.
So it's not a floating shim on a set screw.
Yes.
It's actually a captive.
That's it. That
Shim.
helps pocket travel, all that. But then you also got armature solenoid. There's a lot of other measurements, but that is one that there's no shims have to be used now. This puts us right where
So
we
this
need to be.
block, looking at this, obviously this is going to be a matched set that will be put together on the flow bench and flow tested because you got them 1 through 8.
This just lets him know how it's going on the table. That whole
Okay.
tape, so he can put them right back with that poppet. Everything
So
is
the-
measured.
So the poppet and the body are measured together.
Poppet,
And that's why it's 1 through 8. It's so
That's
that
why is
when they go in, these get ground to what they need to be to match that poppet.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a matched set. It's just to keep the poppet and the body together in the machine that holds 8 units.
These are all cut to the same. But
Okay.
It's just the poppets stay with each body that we measure.
That way it stays together. Quality control.
Quality control.
Keep the parts that go to that part together through the entire process. That way when they come out, it's not a big box of maybes.
Yeah. When you measure something, the parts you measure to get tolerances you want stay together.
There you go.
Yeah. No, that's why that's set. This table is set up for 8 jig table.
Okay.
So that way he knows 1 goes back to 1, 2 goes back to 2.
So they go back into the same spot. Cool. So this thing runs its course, opens up, he cleans everything off, brings them back out, sets those in here. We'll restock these and then rotate the kit over to these tables where they go in and get made.
And over here are lapping tables like I said about.
Yeah, for lapping those shims.
Fuel plates, armature plates, everything is across these tables right here.
Okay.
Where we get everything home back flat, get the dimple out. Get all that dimple out.
Yeah.
This is his tile that he'll have to do.
Yeah, so can you see the indentation there? And that's probably less than 1,000th of an inch.
Yeah, we're talking about
But
tenths of a
but we're basically polishing that out to make sure that is as flat as mechanically possible so that poppet has a good flat surface to run into when it opens.
He does both sides. We cut them in armatures, in different sizes. We machine them whatever size we need to, make sure they're flat.
That's cool.
The measurements of the injector, like I said, you got height that we're cutting out. You still got armature solenoid. You still got poppet travel.
Yeah.
That just gets you in the ballpark and you fine tune it with the rest.
But at least you're starting with good, clean, flat tolerances so that as you assemble them and put them together, all your tolerances stay the same. Now, what's this one over here doing?
He's actually just helping catch up.
Okay, so this one does 1 at a time.
This one does 1 time.
That one does 8 at a time.
Going to do the task all we just got this machine in now. We're 3 months in.
Yeah, in August when I was here last, that was still in crates. That was not installed and operational yet. I don't think this one was either. Or if it was, it wasn't up and running yet.
That came to Spain. We had to wait for it to get here, and then training came over. They set it up.
That's cool. And you can see the YZ axis and everything up there.
That machine right there is highly accurate. We want to, like I said, I'm trying to shoot everything. I mean, when you talk about 1/10 of a thousand, you can rub your hands and change that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
3/10 of a thousandth, I want to be within that range. You know what I mean? 2 to 3/10 is what I'm shooting for. So,
There you go.
like I said, you can literally rub your hands and change that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can.
Still got to have a goal in mind.
3 or 4 swipes and you can rub out.
Just one flash. Those grumpy guys are machinists. Put him in.
He even almost shaved for today. Look at that. Almost. He thought about it.
Everybody's got a mentor. This is mine. So,
there you go.
I ain't gonna say the good shit. He don't have much.
So you want to talk about?
This is their manual section over here. Everything is manual.
Okay. But for R&D purposes, this is where you would come for R&D because you can 1 at a time manually adjust whatever you need in order to get the exact tolerance you're looking for. There you go.
He used to do all our pistons, everything that we machined, and it's all by him. He's been with this company since day 1.
Yeah. So this is essentially just whatever you need to make for R&D can be, because you got the lathe, you got the milling machine, you got the grind cut, you got everything you need.
Everything I need.
To create the product that you need for the research and development, like being able to make sure this is flat and the lines are right. You got everything you need to create that.
Test run, so we don't have to waste all kinds of time in CAD.
Yeah.
Programming everything to find out we need to adjust it. We just do it back here, and then when it's done and it's right, we CAD file and go to the automatic control.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I'm like a kid in a candy store. I was at a welding shop yesterday getting a hitch put on the bus because I don't have a garage. it's been freezing and raining and everything else. I wasn't going to get underneath it with a 110 welder and try to put a hitch on a bus. So I was sitting in his shop the other day and I was like, man, I want to go get a part-time job somewhere just so I can play with tools again. I miss having tooling. If you guys weren't a 3-hour drive, I'd work part-time here just so I could get back into the buildings. But this is cool.
And this is the part of the business that definitely grows.
And this is what's coming out of that grinder. This is the grind flakes that are coming off of the bodies.
Yeah,
This
this
is
is
how-
powdered metal.
This is how fine of a metal. It's literally turning it into. It feels like paper. Yeah, it's just metal paste. So it's really taking that much. It's taking that much metal off at a time to ensure a clean finish.
This just collects it as it comes out of the machine. The
Yeah.
coolant runs through it. The big magnetic drum that collects it.
Wipes
keeps
it off.
It keeps that paper hasn't moved in a month.
Okay.
Because it's not plugged up yet, but it keeps the
So that the coolant can recycle and go back up into the machine.
90% of the crap out of the coolant. This coolant can hold a month on the tube.
That's awesome.
This piece here is the cost of a good-sized car.
Yeah. But this thing's going to extend the life of that. It's going to extend the life of the grinding. Every component of that machine is going to last longer and cost less to run because you're keeping it cool and you're cleaning everything.
In that machine, you can buy at least 5 brand new 6.7s for $1,000.
This was a major investment, but we want to produce
Like,
the best.
When you're talking about quality control and getting a product out there, and like one of my, being that I have multiple dealers, I have to be really careful about what I say on the internet because I don't want to look like I'm playing favorites. And honestly, I'm not. I like to point out the good things that people do. And one of the things on, say, Facebook, for example, that drives me nuts is people will say, I'll never use full force injectors. I got a bad one from them. We've talked about that already. That was probably from that 2020 era. And most of those have been, addressed as best we can. But when you look at that happen, and now the amount of effort that you guys have gone through to make sure that it never happens again, for one, to make sure that the quality control is one of the best in the industry for it. And one of my biggest arguments that I always tell people is, so you heard 12 people say that they got a bad full force injector. I said 95% of everybody who gets something bad will complain. 1% of everybody who got something right will say they got it right. I go, what is the volume of full force? And you just said 800 a week minimum. So 800 injectors a week, and I can count 20 guys that I've seen complain about it. You said maybe 15,000 bodies over how long have you guys been doing this?
20 years.
For 20 years. So, I mean, if we had to pick a number, we're in the millions of injectors you guys have rebuilt and done stock to performance, whatever. And say there's 100 guys out there. Now do math. I'm not going to do it off the top of my head, but even 15,000 when you had that bad batch that went out. 15,000 out of, say, 2 million. What's the percentage ratio? You're less than 1%. 0.02 or 0.03. So there's your failure rate. So your failure rate, what industry can you say has a less than 0.5% comeback rate because of a manufacturing defect? Ford can't say that from the factory. How many of these trucks went in for repairs under warranty and had injectors replaced under warranty? Your guys' injectors are actually probably a higher quality control than what came off the assembly line with them. If you look at your failure rate versus the amount of trucks that were produced, sold, and ended up back at a dealership for some kind of an injector issue.
Ford gets to work with all brand new stuff. We get junk.
Right.
Junk into this.
Right. You guys are taking junk and machining it to tolerances that are better than what it came off the assembly line with. And those were brand new components that probably didn't go through the quality control that you guys did because everything was automated, went down a line. You didn't have people putting them together by hand like you guys do.
All of this stuff we try to hold 1 to 3 tenths. I'm happy with 3. We shoot at 1. Anybody tells you
Yeah, but
they're
that's
hitting a tenth
that's
better,
3
they're lying.
tenths. That's 3/10 of 1,000, not 3/10 of an inch. That's 3/10 of 1,000.
They're a stranded
That's-
hair cut 30 pieces of 3 pieces
Yeah, 3 pieces of a hair
of a strand of hair.
of
Cut
one
in 30
of one
pieces.
hair. Yeah.
Yeah, split into 30 pieces. then take 3 of those pieces. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. So you're not going to get, I mean, and again, like I said, I'm not playing favorites. I'm not picking on any other injector manufacturer, but the tolerances that you guys are machining to, other guys are capable of doing it. Whether they are or not, I haven't been in their shop, so I can't say. But you guys have literally gotten to the tolerance level that's obtainable on Earth.
Yes.
Like you would have to go to space and be in a vacuum and a temperature controlled unit where everything was 60 degrees,
They,
365 days a year, 24 hours a
they
day
were
to do it.
fighting 2 or 3 tenths this morning on this machine because the heat had went down last night. The building dropped to 64. We got it back up to 70 and we sustained it and the machine come back in at the place.
Change
Tolerance,
it, I think,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, and it's just temperature
Just
control.
hard numbers.
It's like go to a gas station when it's 30 degrees outside and your 18-gallon tank holds 19.2 gallons. That's because gas expands by temperature and the pumps are calibrated at 60 degrees. So if it's 32 degrees outside, right? Yeah, but it was below 30 degrees and gas by volume is calibrated at 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And gas has a huge expansion contraction with temperature. So when you're machining bodies like this, yeah, metal. That's why they say, you know, aluminum, brass, and steel, when you put them all together, they risk cracking because through the heat cycle, each,
We go to the point on this every morning. It fires up and runs. Drives is running because we have the coolant running too. And the reason we're running the coolant is we're shearing the coolant to bring it up to temperature. Because when that coolant hits them, it changes
yeah,
just the temperature of the coolant. As long as it's under there grinding, it can change that make that injector. So we have to pull the
essentially
temperature,
preheat.
temperature for this, preheat the water and everything. Otherwise, it changes.
Otherwise, you're cooling the metal so fast that it's shrinking, and then you cut it, and then it expands again when it warms back up. So you've actually taken into consideration the coolant temperature.
You have to when you're playing game under 510.
Yeah,
Air temperature, humidity makes a difference. It
Yeah.
all makes a difference on the grinding wheel. The humidity on the change of grinding wheel destructs the way it
Yep.
is down.
the pores and stuff and absorption rates of the grinding wheel. That's cool. That's like,
We're shooting for the moon. Like I said, we ain't competing. like
yeah,
we
when
talk
you're in
about.
construction and they're talking about, you know, "Hey, we're framing to the 16th of an inch," and you start thinking about the 16th of an inch now times that by 1,000, and then
I tell them, I don't care what anybody else is doing. I just care that my stuff comes out of here right.
just as
I don't
long
give
as
a damn what anybody
Yeah, we ain't
Right.
competing nobody else.
Yeah,
We're
and that's what I
competing
mean,
ourselves
and that's what I'm
every
saying.
day.
Like that's why I kind of preface that I'm not here to compare you guys to anybody else. I'm here to check out the quality and see the process that you guys are going through and the tolerances that you have gotten everything to, and it's mind-boggling to me because like my business, everybody's like, why do you sell a 7.3 part? They are dinosaurs. Nobody's driving them anymore. They're going away. And here you guys are spending the kind of money that you did on this machine this year just to get your tolerance. And we're just talking this one machine to get your tolerances where you need because there is that much demand for the 7.3. These things aren't going away. The truck is, I mean,
we're working on more parts.
yeah,
We're not done yet. This
Yeah.
is the head of it. We've got to change some things, or I personally think we have to change a couple other pieces in the injector and do a little more machining on them. We're working on it. But we
Come back next year, and it'll be a whole
Oh.
revamp process.
as long as you don't want me here in August, because we're going to the West Coast again in August. I've already been sequestered back to no BS OBS. I'll be in Oregon again.
We can get all this, like I said, the new building, get all them out of
Once
our
you
way,
get the
we got
parts and
all
the
this
and the
thing.
shipping and receiving out of the way, this will really open up the
that
injector
big area out
capabilities.
there will probably turn into nothing but grinding. And then this will, I'll put in more CNC, 2 and 3 turn blades and whatnot in here for other.
So we've covered this one that's doing the bodies. What is this one over here for? The next machine over.
Oh, the one with the robot?
Yeah. What are we using? I mean, is this one?
Yeah, this one. Let's just wait. This is a project that
So this is a future project that's coming. So this is something that you guys have purchased and put in here for something that we're going to find out about, but we're not going to discuss it today.
Yes.
I got it. So this is another. If this is a not cheap machine for something, surprise. Hopefully we get to find out about it, and since we're within driving distance, hopefully we get to be one of the first.
Wait, there's about to be a lot of doing that.
I love it. I love it. Is this all part of the new stuff, or is this just machines that you have in order to make sure the quality control for what you're working on stays in
This
house?
is all different kind of parts.
This
These
is
produced
for
here. Fuel blocks.
Fuel blocks we make.
Fuel blocks.
Okay, so this is for
Plenum.
non-injectors, but this is for
Well, we run
other
this,
parts.
and the other lathe up there is injectors. That's how we cut all our internal pieces
Okay.
parts.
to get your parts to spec.
Yeah, those, that machine.
And those are CNC operated automatic lathes that are getting so that, because I know you have your manual stuff back here for R&D, but if you have a CNC, you're taking out the risk of human error. You're taking out the risk of pulling the handle.
Human error though, because you got to draw it.
Well, you got to draw it, you got to punch it in, but the hopes is that once the program is in and it's entered, that the parts that come out are identical within the tolerances. Whereas if you've got a guy loading it into a machine, say he gets lazy and doesn't put it in all the way, these machines are knowing, especially one like this that's robotically loaded, they're knowing that they have put it into that depth before the machine starts
There's
working
check
on it.
stops that they gotta go in
Yeah.
before they clamp up.
Yeah, and so you're reducing the risk of human error when making the parts. See, and I love that. Even though I'm not an automated guy, I still hand test all my stuff. My parts are made automated because I want them all to be the same, and then I assemble them by hand for the final quality control. But when you're making the part, it helps to have the automated equipment instead of having one guy standing there. Plus, you're reducing labor costs by not having one guy standing in front of one machine all day long.
This is got 3 guys in here.
Right.
Take care of all of it.
And these guys, I've since I've been in here, they've finished 10 or 15 bodies with 2 guys instead of one guy who probably would have finished 3 by now, having to do it all manually by hand. So you're expediting the process, and like this machine, we saw 8 bodies at a time instead of 1 body at a time. I love it.
We have to because he's too demanding.
Good.
We give him 800, he wants 900.
Well, you just
The
got to wait
injectors
till
are
he
my
goes on
baby.
vacation and get ahead of him.
Doesn't do any good. I gotta go.
I love it.
Yeah, like the new machine pistons and all that over here on these lathes. Of course, we ain't got none right now, but that's one. That's for the different height. That's going to change your fuel delivery. You know what I mean? AA.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Okay, so that plunger goes inside here,
yes.
and your piston, you're changing this and this for your CCs coming in. So a larger CC injector would have a smaller bore and be farther. It would leave more room at the bottom.
The bore size,
height.
the bore size stays the same.
Okay, so
You're
it's just the
changing
height. So 90 cc's, 100 cc's, 120, whatever. You're changing the height of that bore to basically
Height and depth.
be able to hold more fuel underneath that.
I can show
Cool.
you the difference between like a 400 and a stock A here in a little bit.
400, yeah. You're talking tractor pull level at that. Nobody's is anybody really daily driving a 400 cc?
No, 400. What about 350-200 that's on the road every day?
Oh man.
Yeah, there's a bunch of 350-200s. One of the guys that used to be in Fort Lewis County, he daily drove a 300.
So that's essentially
Stock A,
that's a couple hundred cc's more fuel because cc's is really a small amount of fuel. That's what people, when they see these numbers, they don't realize that a cc
Yes.
is like the amount of fuel that a diesel injects to run. Like at an idle, it's nothing.
Very minimal.
It's like an eyedropper at best for the entire RPM cycle. So you're changing it essentially 3 eyedroppers worth of diesel going from 90 to 400.
Yeah.
And people, they see those numbers though, and it just sounds huge. They're like, oh my God, that's a lot. And you're like, yeah, it's like 3 eyedroppers full of diesel. That shows you the volume difference. That's your volume difference. Half an inch of that 3/4 inch stroke or whatever the specs are on it.
Yeah, even the pumps on our flow benches, they struggle to keep up with the 400. And we've
Yeah.
got some stuff that we do bigger than a 400.
And that's crazy because it's not a lot of volume.
Mm-hmm.
It's the high pressure changes the amount. It's being able to build that much pressure
You're gonna have,
at the
if you
volume.
don't have the injection pressure in the atomization, it's not doing anything unless you're throwing nitrous with it. Then
Yeah,
it doesn't care. You can dump it in with garden.
yeah, that spicy air.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of when they put the bus on these
You got all new solenoids.
specials.
You got
Oh, look
all
at
new
you guys
solenoids. You don't
treating
even
me
get a
too
remake
nice.
solenoid. Kirk said fix you up.
Dadgummit. Look at those. Do they come with free install? No.
If it's a pickup truck, we talk about it. A bus?
My understanding is I actually have to pull the motor mount and drop the motor, like not unbolt the motor mount, pull the motor mount so the motor will set down far enough to get the middle two
You
cylinders
can-
out.
Yeah, you can pull the solenoid off.
You pull that one solenoid pack off where that joint rib comes together, and you do just squeak in, you put your solenoid on. You don't have to screw with motor.
Okay.
You can, but
I just hope that the Atlas pipes I put on there reseal when I'm done.
They should. They should.
And
well, at
That-
least in a bus they're easy.
and
Yeah,
while
yeah.
we're talking about all the upgrades that have to come with injectors, okay, HPOP, e-fuel, because I'm running the stock pushrod fuel pump on this bus. It's like it'll run them.
Yeah, usually
For what I'm
stage
doing
ones,
with it,
yeah.
it should hold all that. But what I'm saying is, it's like I was telling you, some of the tuners were like, "Oh no, go big," or and I'm like, okay, now we're talking injectors, turbos, fuel, HPOP, transmission. At that point, I might as well get a carbon fiber drive shaft because I'm going to blow that out the ass of the bus if I'm not careful. It's like,
Yeah.
at what point do you stop? And I think right now, for me anyways, what I want to do is get this done, get the turbo in it, do the dyno pools, get some kind of documentation, and then maybe next year we get crazy and we go just a little bit bigger if we can, but
What are those stage ones?
I can't say
So-
nothing. You think about injectors, how many I've built in my 10 plus years here, and I still got stock ADs in my daily driver set.
so what's in so let's talk numbers. What's a stock AD? That's a 140 stock tip. And these are stage 1, so this is a 160, right?
You can get one stage one could be 160, 180. I mean,
Okay.
it'll still be a stage one. No
Still
matter.
be a stage 1. Okay.
Stage one is just a
So-
stock nozzle.
So this is okay. So this is a stock nozzle. So we're not going to be any large. So that means we should get the atomization that we want for the right thing for fuel efficiency, which a bus that we're driving all across the country, as much as performance is cool and fun, and we're going to try to get it on the burnout pad at Truck Fest. Yeah.
Get something to block the front wheels.
Well, it's got drum brakes. I'll just back them off.
I'm just saying, it'll push through the front. We had a bus for a while with a set of 1.5s, stock turbo, stock fuel systems.
So with my leaky turbo, so I know my boost is not where it's supposed to be,
Uh-huh.
and we put the Hydra on it. One, it really woke it up.
Yeah.
My favorite right now, I'm running, I think is number 4. I think it's the 40 horse tow tune. The reason I like that one the most is the shift patterns are the best for the bus's fuel efficiency. So that's my daily. If I run it to the 80 horse performance tune and you stand on it, it will not break the rear tires loose because of the weight of the bus sitting on it. But if you pull the brake off, it lifts the front tires off the ground.
Yeah.
And that's with a weak turbo and stock AAs.
Yeah.
So I think with the hitch being installed now, I'm going to get a wheelie bar made that I
Yeah.
can put in the hitch because I have a feeling it's going to drag the bumper
Yeah.
as soon as we get these in the
Stock
turbo.
AAs, you're about to see it.
Oh yeah, it's
Now-
pretty much doubling the CCs.
Now with my tuning, do I need to change the tuning?
You don't have to. There's a lot.
But
of
I
guys
have
that
stuff
don't.
I can tune
Yeah.
because of these that the AAs wouldn't have been able to
Yes,
do.
yes.
But it'll run fine on the tunes that I have between now and March.
The right tunes on that with ones you should be 300, 310 horse.
Yeah.
So with
Yeah,
with either a
with-
balanced assembly to fix the turbo leaks or their new Gen 3 drop in, whichever route I decide to go with that, because I have to fix the turbo.
Mhm.
So once we fix the turbo with these in the right tuning, you're guessing 300.
I would
To
say
the-
a little
to the
bit, maybe
ground?
a little bit
With a
more.
drop-in turbo, yeah, you're going to be
325.
307 is the number that always come out of my.
Yeah.
It's
So-
always 307.
So
a lot
I
of it
wished we
depends
could have
on-
got it on the dyno in September because I really wanted a baseline to put it on. And I don't own a dyno, so we can't put it on one. But I'm like, Matt was trying to get me on the dyno, and I'm like, you trying to get me to throw 145? I mean, come on. It's a bus that came out, what are they, 190s, the AAs?
197.
Yeah, but then you put a leaky turbo on it, 300,000 mile drivetrain.
Yeah.
I'm like, we
Gotta bring
might
it down
throw
a little.
145 down, and it would be great if I could have done that and had that number, and then put these on it and see if we can, because that's essentially doubling the
Yeah.
power that the bus has now.
That's typically what you can expect. I mean, like that's
Almost twice as many CCs.
No valve body, no converter.
I didn't even change the pan gasket and filter before August because I ran out of time. I don't know if you guys remember. I showed up here because I needed a fuel pump and I needed up pipes. And I literally I got up at 5 a.m, drove all the way out here, picked up the parts, spent like an hour here, drove back to Henry, installed everything by 10 o'clock at night, put the whole top of the motor back together, went to bed, got up the next morning, drove to Nashville, picked him up at the airport, drove him home, did laundry, and got up at 5:30 the next morning and left for Oregon. This test drive on the fuel pump and the pipes that I put in from you guys, it hadn't even been fired. I put it together, went to bed, and didn't start it for 2 days. Started it, looked under the bus, went, no fuel leaks, let's go, and we left for Oregon with 325,000 miles on the clock. I put brakes and batteries. Yeah, that was a whole lot of faith.
I know a guy to put a motor in.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you got some useful information out of this video. Got to learn a little bit about how the injector rebuild process goes. When we take the cores back, we're going to try to do a little bit of that cutaway injector they told me about so that we can kind of give you an idea of how the injection process works in a 7.3 diesel. If you found anything exciting in here or anything knowledgeable or good or bad or whatever, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you have any comments, if you have any questions you'd like me to ask when we take the cores back, we are going to go back in person to deliver the cores just to do a little more footage and maybe get some more questions answered. If there's something I didn't cover, something you guys want to know, leave it down in the comments below. Give me some questions. I'm not sure exactly how soon we're going to get back there to take those cores back, but hopefully pretty soon. And then we'll get some test miles on all the new injectors in Agnes before we head out to Summit 7.3 in March down in Cummins, Georgia. If you're not familiar with it, you're in the 7.3 world, you really should make an effort to try to get to Georgia for Summit 7.3. A lot of great people there, a lot of great knowledge, so much about the 7.3, and I'm excited to go back. We were there last year. Can't wait to go back again. Anyways, like I said, please like and subscribe. We'll talk to you guys all soon.